Someone keeps leaving packages at my doorstep. It started about 3 weeks ago, on a chilly Tuesday morning. I was heading out the door for work, coffee in one hand and my bag in the other, when I almost tripped over a small package sitting on the welcome mat. The box was plain and unmarked, save for a single piece of white tape sealing it shut. No label, no return address, nothing to indicate who had left it or why. Curiosity got the better of me. I brought it inside, placed it on the kitchen counter, and carefully opened it with a knife. Inside was a single item, a photograph. It was an old, faded picture of a house I didn't recognize. The architecture was dated, something from the early 1900s, with peeling white paint and a sagging roof. There was no note, no explanation, just the photo. At first, I brushed it off as a mistake. Maybe someone had dropped it off at the wrong house. I tossed the photo in a drawer and went about my day. But the next morning, another package was waiting for me. This one was slightly larger, wrapped in the same plain brown paper. My heart sank as I picked it up. It wasn't heavy, but it felt deliberate, like whoever had left it wanted me to open it. I carried it inside, my hands trembling. This time, it was a small, dusty journal. The leather cover was cracked with age, and the pages were yellowed and brittle. When I opened it, the scent of mildew hit me like a wave. The writing inside was cramped and messy, almost illegible, but certain phrases stood out. She knows. The whispers won't stop. It's in the walls. I can't trust anyone. The final page was blank, except for a single phrase scrawled in red ink. Don't look for it. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing with questions. Who was leaving these packages? Why me? And what the hell were they trying to tell me? I decided to install a security camera above my front door. If someone was messing with me, I was going to catch them in the act. The third package arrived 2 days later. The camera footage showed nothing. One moment, the porch was empty. The next, the package was there, as if it had materialized out of thin air. This box was larger than the others, but just as nondescript. Inside, I found a porcelain doll. Its face was chipped, and one of its glass eyes was missing, leaving an empty socket that seemed to stare right through me. The doll wore a tattered, stained dress, and clutched in its tiny hands was another photograph. It was the same house from the first package, but this time, there was someone standing in the doorway. A figure in a black coat and wide-brimmed hat, their face obscured by shadow. I started to feel like I was being watched. Every creak in the house, every rustle of leaves outside sent a jolt of fear through me. The packages kept coming. One contained a rusted key, its teeth jagged and uneven. Another held a lock of hair tied with a red ribbon. The next was filled with dirt, damp, and reeking of decay. Each item felt like a piece of a puzzle, but the picture they formed was one I couldn't understand. The turning point came with the seventh package. This one was heavier, the size of a shoebox. I opened it with shaking hands, dreading what I might find. Inside was a tape recorder. It was old, the kind with physical buttons and a small cassette tape inside. Taped to the front was a note, "Play me." Against my better judgment, I pressed play. The recording started with static, a low hiss that made my skin crawl. Then, a voice. It was quiet, hoarse, and trembling with fear. "You need to leave. They know who you are. They've been watching you." There was a pause, followed by a sound that sent chills down my spine. A deep guttural growl, like an animal lurking just out of sight. The voice returned, frantic now. "Whatever you do, don't let them in. Don't trust the lights. And whatever you hear, don't answer the door." The tape cut off abruptly, leaving me in suffocating silence. That night, the power went out. I sat in the dark, clutching a flashlight and listening to every sound in the house. The wind outside howled like a living thing, and somewhere in the distance, I swore I heard footsteps crunching on gravel. At one point, there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps, perfectly spaced. I didn't move. The knock came again, louder this time. My phone buzzed on the counter, the screen lighting up with a message from an unknown number. "Don't answer." I spent the rest of the night huddled in the corner of the living room, the flashlight beam darting across the walls. When morning finally came, the knocking stopped, but the packages didn't. The final package arrived yesterday. It was enormous, nearly the size of a coffin, and covered in dirt and scratches. I didn't want to open it. Every fiber of my being screamed to burn it, to leave it unopened and walk away. But I had to know. Inside was a mirror. Its surface was cracked, the frame ornate and carved with symbols I didn't recognize. As I stared into it, my reflection shimmered and warped. And then, I wasn't looking at myself anymore. The figure from the photograph stared back at me. Their face was still hidden in shadow, but I could feel their gaze, cold and unrelenting. They raised a hand, and so did I, as if we were connected by an invisible thread. Then they spoke, their voice echoing in my head. "You've seen too much." The mirror shattered, the shards flying outward and cutting into my skin. When I looked back at the box, it was empty. Now, I'm writing this as a warning. The packages have stopped, but I don't think I'm alone. Sometimes, I catch glimpses of movement in the corner of my eye. At night, I hear faint whispers coming from the mirror, even though it's gone. If you ever find an unmarked package on your doorstep, don't open it. And if you do, pray it's not too late.